28. The Roots of Environmentalism. Chalcedon Position Paper, number 118, February 1990. Environmentalism has become a religion for many, and world salvation is seen as dependent on an environmentalist's gospel. Salvation, by means of man's control of the environment, is an increasingly militant faith held by many. It is, moreover, a very anti-Christian faith. Biblical laws give us regulations concerning sanitation, the care of Sabbaths of the land, the protection of trees, and more. And a remarkable record of reclamation and conservation marks church history. Desert areas of Europe were made productive, dikes were built, and amazing acts of changing the face of the continent performed by the medieval monks and their successors. The environmentalists, however, see Christian man as the destroyer and so-called primitive man as the preserver. They choose to ignore the fact that tribesmen regularly burned vast tracts of forests and lands to drive animals towards them for an easy kill. The roots of environmentalism are in the fall of man. Adam and Eve both pleaded not guilty to their sin on the grounds that someone in their environment made them do it. Adam, for example, blamed both Eve and God. "The woman who thou gavest to be with me, she gave me of the tree, and I did eat." Genesis chapter 3, verse 12. Men and women ever since have been ready to blame one another, or God, or their environment for their sins. One of the most common of all statements that I have heard from sinners in counselling sessions is this: "Well, that's the way God made me. My wife, or my husband, will have to take me as I am." I cannot believe that God will take lightly the habit of many in making him the scapegoat for their sins. Essential to this perspective is, first of all, a refusal to be responsible. Someone else is to blame, ultimately God. The Bible depicts man as made in the image of God and created to be a responsible creature, although a sinner, because of the fall. Environmentalism views man as a victim, a product of his environment, except where it chooses to blame man, as we shall see. Second, this refusal to be responsible means a refusal to acknowledge guilt. The premise is, I am not guilty. My parents, my environment, my heredity, my race, that is, something in my world is responsible for my sin. Someone or something above, below, or around me is guilty. I am a product of their influences. Clarence Darrow, in defending the murderers Richard Loeb and Nathan Leopold for the murder of Robert Franks, said, "They killed him because they were made that way. Hence, they were not to blame for it." He added, "Is Dickie Loeb to blame because out of the infinite forces that conspired to form him, the infinite forces that were at work producing him ages before he was born, that because out of these infinite combinations he was born without it, that is, without emotional feeling? If he is, then there should be a new definition of justice. Is he to blame that his machine is imperfect?" Darrow was actually eliminating any possible definition of justice by denying human responsibility. The plea of Clarence Darrow, August the 22nd, 23rd and 25th, 1924, in defense of Richard Loeb and Nathan Leopold Jr. on trial for murder, Chicago, Illinois, 1924, page 55. Darrow insisted on an environmental and hereditarian causality which totally eliminated personal responsibility. Darrow actually questioned whether man has a mind. Everything depends on infinite chances. Ibid, page 65. It was all due to some sort of chemical alchemy. Ibid, Such thinking has had a powerful influence on the Western world. Man is simply a reflux product, not a responsible being. This leaves an open question. Where in this vast chain of causes is blame to be fixed? Who is guilty? This led, third, to affixing blame on God, the Creator, on civilization, meaning Christian civilization by Rousseau and his followers, and in blaming in each case the old order. In France, Russia, and elsewhere, God and the old order were to blame. For many now, the old order is capitalism. Therefore, whatever the ills of nature or society, capitalism is to blame. The definition of the victim is now limited to a segment of humanity who, because of their membership in the old order, are somehow responsible for all evils. In the new demonology, they are the total cause of all the world's problems, and the rest of humanity are their innocent victims. This means, fourth, that environmentalism has close links with Phariseeism, with an elitist mentality which sees itself as the self-chosen arbiter of all society. The environmentalists speak as the voice of truth and as the hope of the world. They believe that man can destroy the world, other men, that is, and only they can save it. There is an amazing arrogance in the environmentalist belief that man is capable of destroying the earth. It is an assumption that humanistic man is the new God, with vast capabilities of creation and destruction. Then, fifth, environmentalism has close links with many ungodly thinkers. The ties to Rousseau are very great, but we must not forget Albert Schweitzer and his pantheism. Schweitzer's doctrine of reverence for life placed equal value on an earthworm as on a man's life. For him, killing deadly bacteria to save a dying man was an unhappy compromise. Many environmentalists are ready to sacrifice other men to, quote-unquote, save the environment. The goal in their thinking is a new world Eden which is virtually free of people. For them, the restoration of purity means the restoration of nature to an imagined pre-human estate, with themselves as the caretakers. Babies can be aborted, but rattlesnakes cannot be killed. Like Marx and Lenin, these people are utopians. Lenin believed that revolution would free mankind for an era of unlimited prosperity. He had no program for liberated Russia. The Soviet structure he borrowed hastily from an American socialist, Daniel de Leon. Sixth, the environmentalists share with the socialists a static view of wealth. There is so much wealth in the world, and no more, and the capitalists control it. Seize that wealth, and all men will be free and prosperous. They fail to understand that wealth requires intelligent work and thrift, and a development of the Earth's natural resources. The entire planet is a gigantic mass of natural wealth, and we have barely scratched its resources. Just as in the last days of Rome, when many believed that the Earth's resources were exhausted, so too many now make the same assumption. We are rather approaching the dawn of resource development and wealth, not its end. The static view of wealth is applied to strange areas. For about a century and a half, some Americans have calculated and predicted the death of all American forests. The fallacy in their calculations has been a failure to reckon trees as a renewable resource. Trees are cut down, and other trees grow and take their place. The alarmist predictions of several generations have proven false, but this does not trouble these people. Fanatical in their humanistic faith, they are determined to compel all men by law into their particular religious beliefs. Their excuse is that the future of man requires it. Of course, all persecutors have reasons which they find very compelling. Their necessities, however, are somewhat unrelated to reality. Can man do damage to his portion of the earth? Of course he can, and men have done it over and over again in history. At the same time, other men have reclaimed such areas. The sad fact is that where farming and foresting are concerned, these people, the environmentalists, can only chronicle the negative aspects of the scene. Nothing is said about the great advances in knowledge and practice. Environmentalism is a religious faith, and it is a false religion. The biblical requirement is that we recognize that the earth is the Lord's, the fullness thereof, and all things therein. Psalm 24, verses 1 and 2. And it must be governed by his law word. It is our calling to subdue the earth and to develop it as God's stewards. We are accountable to him for it, as for all things else. There is a vast world of difference between environmentalism and godly stewardship, and we had better recognize it.